So, do you know who Frida Kahlo is? I saw a documentary of Frida Kahlo when I was teaching Spanish to students in the 90s. I was teaching in a high school, and my supervising teacher recommended that I show my students a documentary about Frida Kahlo. And I had known about her a little bit. I had probably seen her art, but I didn't know a whole lot about her life. And I watched this documentary, talking about the original Artivist. Not the original, because there have been other artivists in the world and before her, but like in so many ways, her work and who she was as a person represents so much of what I want to be. Her work is both deeply personal, but also it talks about the power that women have when we share all of who we are, even when that feels very personal, and you start to realize that you have connections to other people by sharing it. And I love her. And this summer I was in Mexico and I found this bag and I was like, yes, this is my bag. And she just inspires me. So whenever I travel to do the show, I take this bag with me. So I took this bag with me to our show at the University of Utah, which we did on Tuesday. And we had an incredible time. So the show was the closing act of the 10th anniversary of the University of Utah's College of Social Work Social Justice Series. And this is put on by this incredible teacher, educator, powerful woman there named Irene Ota. She invited Chandra and me to see her class, and she's doing a class on social justice advocacy for social workers, and they're creating toolkits for advocacy, and all of their projects were incredible. One woman is doing a support group for transracially adopted kids in Salt Lake City. Another woman is creating a website for parents to know their the educational rights for themselves and for their children. They were just so great and amazing and inspiring. It was wonderful. And then the best part is that then Irene took us out to dinner. We had dinner with some of the students and faculty before the show, the night before the show. And we're walking up to dinner and Chandra goes, "Oh, Fanshen, look at the name of this restaurant we're going to." And the name of the restaurant is Frida Bistro. And I got this gorgeous t-shirt from Irene. Thank you, Irene. That is at Frida Bistro in Salt Lake City, Utah, which was just a wonderful restaurant. The food was great. And we were sitting there blessed by Frida herself. I got to speak with quite a few people after the show, and they were really moved and had lots of kind of follow-up questions. And so I'm so proud that we were able to do the show there. So if any of you are watching from the University of Utah, thank you for having us. It was really just a really inspiring. Okay, this morning I did the show at the Museum of Tolerance here in Los Angeles. And it was so nice to go from, that I had big audiences. I had a big 1,500 students a week ago, and then Utah, a really big stage, and then here in Los Angeles at the Museum of Tolerance, it seats about 115 people or so, but generally these are smaller groups. It's probably about 35 or 40 people, and I'm really up close to them, and it makes such a difference. It's a very different feeling of the staging, but it's really nice because it's intimate, and I can literally look right into people's faces and interact with them directly. So it's always nice to be back at the museum. And also, one woman who came today has seen the show there before, and she said, I saw some new things here today. So that was great. So she's noticing that I'm making changes. Now, also, by the way, we have 2 new slides. So I talked a little bit about pacing last week and how I'm looking at places to pick up the pacing, but I also realized that there's a slide that can kind of help situate the audience a little bit more. When my father and I are both traveling, I'm paralleling our trips to Africa together. So I've included a slide of when my father went to the Sudan, Ethiopia, and Eritrea. Now, interestingly, I'm using Venmo. So this Venmo is an app that you can use to pay people quickly. I asked my graphic designer, Heather Phipps, who's amazing. Thank you, Heather. I asked Heather Phipps to create a new slide. And so when I paid her on Venmo, you write a little note to yourself, like a memo on a check. And I wrote ODOL, One Drop of Love, slide, Sudan, Ethiopia. Well, they put a flag on the payment, and I just got an email from Venmo telling me that they had to investigate my payment and they needed to know exactly what this payment was for since I had used the words Sudan and Ethiopia. Interesting. Racist? I don't know what to say. All I can think of is, my God, like, if you are Sudanese or Ethiopian, what life must be like for you now. And I am sorry for people who prejudge you. Not that I have to apologize for what they do, but I'm sorry for what you have to go through. Okay, this week I'm going to do physical goals, which is that a friend of mine posted on Facebook a 50 push-up challenge. And so it takes you through, you start up with 5 push-ups, then you move on to 10, and you get rest breaks, and then you move on to 12, and then you keep moving on, and you do 50 push-ups eventually. So yeah, that's my goal. How about you? What are your goals? Are you writing? Are you performing? Are you workshopping your work? Are you sharing your work with other people? Are you sharing your story? Someone said today after the museum show, you know, your story is incredible. And I said, I didn't know that until I started sharing it with people. Your story is incredible too. You just got to get it out there and find out about your parents' stories and their parents' stories. And it's so important to hear someone else's narrative so that we are not stuck in what we believe they are just based on what we see on the outside. Okay, thank you for watching. This has been another This Week as an Artivist. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.